Hello everyone, and welcome back to Patch Rundowns. My name is Phreak. I am a League of Legends player, commentator, and overall enthusiast of math. And let's talk about what happened in patch 7.22. Spoiler alert, it is huge. It is the big patch of the year for League of Legends. It is the start of the preseason for 2018. It has, as you can tell by this big table of contents, a lot of stuff in it. The big thing is Runes Reforged. If you've been living under a rock for League of Legends, it is a very large update where the runes and masteries that you know and maybe love and probably don't are gone, and in their place is a thing called Runes Reforged, where you pick a path such as Resolve, you pick a Keystone, you pick 3 other runes in these sort of rows or tables, you then pick a second path such as Domination, you pick 2 more runes in one of these 3 rows. It also could have been Precision or Sorcery or Inspiration, and actually breaking down all those runes will happen at a later time, either later on in this video or in a different video, but I wanted to get into everything else in the patch because talking about the runes themselves would take a very long time, and I want to get to the other meat of this patch. So the big thing that happened, because runes are gone and masteries have been replaced by Runes Reforged, although Runes Reforged are very... I would say, very similar to like present day masteries. That's a pretty analogous replacement. But what's missing is everyone's runes, and runes gave everyone a bunch of attack damage or attack speed or magic penetration or health, armor, magic resist, things like that. And that's all gone. And so every champion in the game had to get adjustments to their base stats. And there's a lot of them. And instead of going through all 138 champions, and going one by one, look at what Nidalee got, look what Nautilus got, I already did all of that. Well, I did most of that. I know I missed a couple. I put this all together after coming home from China and being jet lagged, so I apologize if there's mistakes here. I'm sure I got a couple of numbers wrong. I know I forgot at least one champion. I know Alistair's not in here, despite being right here. He's not in my list. That's okay. Let's talk about the types of champions that got changes. Up first, mages got their seals back. Basically, just to kind of give you the quick look at what happened, basically every champion got seals. Your path bonus, such as going Resolve, which we look at, up here, or even you could look at Sorcery. Sorcery gives attack damage or ability power. Roughly as much attack damage or ability power as you would have gotten with quintessences and a couple of other small things. It's not exactly 1-to-1, but roughly your quints got replaced. Your seals got directly replaced in base stats. Glyphs more or less disappeared, and marks sometimes got replaced. Okay, so mages got 12 health and 12 health per level, which is exactly what seals gave them in 99% of cases in the prior patch. This does mean that if you're facing a Zed in lane, you can no longer run armor seals. And so there's going to be some small, interesting balance considerations, like maybe Zed has to do less damage at level 1 because of this. We'll figure that out as time goes on, but for now, this is not going to be what's happening. Mages all get health per level. They get exactly what their seals were. I do want to point out that while the runes gave you exactly 12 health every level, and here you got 12 health at level 1, the way growth stats work is... you don't get the full value until level 18. You don't get 17 levels worth of health per level until you've literally leveled up 17 times. You get 65 or 68. I actually used to know the numbers. I think you get 62.5%. You get 62.5% of a level's worth of stats when you hit level 2. So instead of gaining 12 health, you'll gain 62.5% of 12 health on your first level up. What this means is, for the vast majority of time playing one of these mages, not only did you get screwed in your base stats, this is actually the worst, it's why it's red over here, is they got less than every other class, but you don't even get the full 12 health growth. You get less than that until you're level 18. Okay, sure, certainly yes, level 10 gives you more than 12 health, but you got less than that in the first few levels, so you're still at a lower value than you were coming into this point. So mages get doubly nerfed, with the exception of Kale, who got some free attack speed at level 1. to make that champion feel like the same champion. And Teemo gained 8.5 attack damage because he's more of an auto attacker, and apparently AD Teemo is really, really popular. So some of these champions got really big boosts, such as Kayle and Teemo. The rest get screwed and then doubly screwed based on game mechanics. So that's a thing. The next set of champions I wanted to look at is right here, what I called melee mages. It also includes Kennen, because sure, and Zyra, because she gets a full support's worth of armor. We'll talk about that later. But basically, you could have gotten 12 health per level, or you got 5 armor and 5 health per level, which, by the way, is actually even worse than getting the 12 health per level in a way, because if you actually looked at the numbers, if you said, okay, well, this is worth 9 seals, this 5 armor is worth 5 seals, and this is slightly less than 4 seals worth of health. If you actually got 4 seals, it would be 5 1/3. So if you're a melee mage, you got actually extra screwed in your base stats, which feels really bad. Even in gold value, 192 becomes 180, right? Okay, so Phreak, why are we all getting screwed? What's going on here? What are you trying to tell me? Well, don't worry, we've got more going on. We'll circle back to exactly how screwed these champions really are in a little bit. There are a couple of other champions that got attack damage and that like melee mage level of whatever else, and it's usually junglers like Elise, who is often running like hybrid pen or attack speed or attack damage, something else like that. And so instead of getting the attack speed buff that like Kayle got, she just gets raw attack damage because YOLO. Obviously like Corki and Jace and things like this. And so it was, I guess it was just like a way of having a lot of mage junglers keep up by giving them all 8 attack damage. Or if you were simply a solo laner or a physical damage solo laner, or at least an auto-attacking solo laner that tended to go mid, you went half and half, because normally like a fighter like Garen or Aurelia just got 9 armor and 8 attack damage. But because like Talon and Zed play mid lane, it feels really weird to say you got 9 armor, but you're playing against Ahri every game. Like, why? And so instead they get half and half, which I think actually makes a fair bit of sense, right? These champions are almost exclusively melee, or at least they're expected to like bot lane once in a while. But basically I think this is a pretty solid compromise. I think it's actually a pretty decent stat bucket because you're getting attack damage at level 1. Obviously, the stats are really nice. I want to point out, by the way, that Corki is a huge winner here. Corki is a huge winner, and I'll talk about why that is at the very end when we go through everyone else's stats. But Corki basically got to cheat with his stats this game, or this patch, and I think he's going to be like really, really, really strong as a result. And again, we'll get into that later. Another bucket of champions that got stats were basically jungling tanks. And also a lot of top lane tanks as well, such as Maokai, Malphite, Nautilus, things like this. Right, much like how Elise and Nidalee got some base attack damage, these guys got 15 attack speed at level 1. And this, I think, wasn't going to come in for a while. I know Azale, for example, had pushed pretty heavily for this, that it feels really bad to play any of these tanks without your attack speed marks. And so a lot of tanks got their marks back. They got attack speed marks. This is technically a little bit more attack speed than they would have gotten from the marks themselves, but barely. Actually, no, I think it's slightly less. It doesn't matter. The math is kind of irrelevant. Either way, they get a 15 attack speed back to play a Mumu and Dr. Mundo and whatnot. Again, half these are junglers, half these are top laners, but they got a very basic 9 armor and nothing else. So what this means, as you can tell, is that these tanks like Maokai and Malphite and Nautilus, who would have played top lane, and Shen, who would have gotten some scaling health seals, some magic resist glyphs, maybe some health regeneration in there as well, get none of that. They get their marks, they get their seals, and they don't get glyphs, and they don't get quints. And now we talked about before, quints are typically replaced in your path bonus, but no one got glyphs here. No one gets glyphs in all of League of Legends, which means no champions at all got magic resist. They got health if they were a true mage, or they got armor, which is everyone else, and then some of them got their marks back. And again, we'll talk about that topic a bit more as we get through the rest of the champions. But what it means, though, is that magic damage top laners gained a fair bit, because pretty much none of the top laners got health or health per level, aside from, again, their resolve path bonus. They got armor, which helps them against physical damage dealers, but it doesn't help them against mages. And so that's like a sort of a benefit. And there's a ton of champions that got the exact same base stat benefit, which is roughly 9 armor and roughly 8 attack damage rounded. One thing I want to start pointing out is this miscellaneous column, where you're seeing a bunch of abilities get base damage increases. Basically, there are a lot of abilities that had bonus attack damage ratios, and if you're not using... Well, if you're not gaining bonus attack damage because you no longer have runes or in the old masteries, your base attack damage went up by 8, but that doesn't multiply like a Pantheon Q, right? Pantheon has gigantic attack damage ratios. I think it's supposed to be E plus 20, by the way. It's a typo. Jet lag again. But they're not getting to use the ratios because they don't have runes and masteries to add to those stats. And so a lot of the champions got base damage increases, almost entirely all physical damage, bonus AD ratio abilities to help keep them in line. And I'm certain there are going to be some winners and losers in this regard. For example, Sivir gained nothing. Sivir gained no stat spell bonuses, but like Tristana did. So it's definitely imperfect. I'm not going to lie. It is definitely imperfect. But at the end of the day, it'll all settle out in the end, and champions that need buffs will get buffs. It's not a huge deal, actually. Basically, every fighter and marksman got the same suite, which is 9 armor and 8 attack damage, which again, pretty much exactly replaces seals and marks, and then nothing else. And so once again, if you're playing Riven into Lysandra, you gain some armor. Okay, yeah, your W and E do 5 more damage, but you don't have any magic resist at all against that champion. AP Kennen, etc., Teemo, etc. Riven mid, similar things going on. And then finally, there's one last suite of champions that got buffs, and it's all the typical supports, as well as a couple of random examples like Fiddlesticks, who's a jungler, and Evelynn, who's a jungler, and didn't get 8 attack damage. The idea, by the way, that I've understood with this is that Evelynn is considered to be buffed as of Runes Reforged, based on the playtesters' feedback, and so she gains less than other champions. You can tell that plus 9 armor is a very weak addition to have, obviously. But basically, again, no one got glyphs. Most supports' marks were kind of whatever, and most supports were running, well, they weren't mostly running armor seals. A lot of them were running flat health seals, but oh well. And what it comes down to is tank supports got 20 armor, and non-tank supports got 9 armor. So, you know, your Tom Kenches and Tareks and Alistairs and Brahms of the world and Blitzcrank all got 20 armor and get to feel really good about the fact that, well, they're melee, they need the stats really badly. And if you're just a basic support, you're probably fine. Okay, so we've looked at all the kind of stats people get, right? Attack speed, armor, attack damage, or some mix of health and health per level. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is mages won by more than you think the numbers gave. Because when you're Lysandra, and all you got was your scaling health differences, like, realize that Malphite gained armor and didn't gain health, didn't gain magic resist, didn't gain regeneration. So all these tanks, like every single person in the game, I mean, every bot lane marksman outside of a few examples were running 12 magic resist. All the top lane fighters, if they weren't running CDR, was running a bunch of magic resist. Maybe it's even magic resist per level, like a Lee Sin often would run MR per level and things like this. And it was a lot of power that protected them against mages. So while most tanks got to get their marks back with their attack speed, and most fighters got their marks back with base attack damage buffs, mages didn't really get magic penetration, but no one gained magic resist. So you would have gained like 7-ish magic pen from your, like 7.5 roughly, from your suite of marks, and everyone else lost 12 MR, right? And like flat MR glyphs, like even though not everyone ran them all the time, especially not pros, it was still the most common rune to run in the glyph slot. And so everyone lost 12 MR, you lost 7 magic pen, you just gained 5 magic pen. Like, sure, okay, you know, Kayle got 15 attack speed, that's really, really good. Katarina essentially got 5 magic pen, right? So it's not listed here and it's not part of the stats, but it happened, right? Like, you still get the benefit that when you fight someone at level 1, they have 30 MR and not 35 based on your marks and their glyphs. So mages got screwed less than you really think, which brings me again to the big winner in Corki, who still got his marks, who still got 5 damage on his Phosphorus Bomb, and still benefits from no one having glyphs. Like, Corki got marks and then got another half of his marks back. And Kayle's in the same boat where Kayle got her marks, she got her attack speed, and then still benefits from the fact that no one's running any magic resist. Now, certainly there are still some considerations. The fact that Kayle really wanted to run cooldown reduction to get her E to a low cooldown very quickly. Yes, I realize it's going to be difficulty. Thankfully, there are ways of doing that. There's several ways of getting... You can get 15 CDR from new runes, from Runes Reforged, so it's not like she like missed out on all of her breakpoints. But you have champions like Kog'Maw as well, who got his marks back. Okay, maybe the seals aren't literally optimal, but Kog'Maw is like 50% magic damage in most games. He never ran Magic Pen before, but now everyone is missing magic resist glyphs. And so there's some champions who came out winning in this regard, who came out winning a lot in this regard. Every AP jungler like Nidalee, okay, granted she lost her ability power glyphs and she lost maybe proper or like exactly perfect correct marks in some cases, but no one has magic resist anymore. And that's a really big deal. So everyone who was running attack damage marks, despite being a mage or magic damage dealer, typically got their marks back and then got 5 more magic pen on top of it, on top of getting like everything else. So, or sorry, 12 magic pen, I should really say. So that's actually a really big deal. So that's actually a very substantial numbers change that people I think aren't giving a lot of credit to, that significantly buffs mages in ways that people weren't really considering, even though the numbers don't look good. Okay, so that's the general rundown of the base stat changes. Obviously, there were some pretty big winners, like Corki, and yes, I think there still were some losers. Like Bard got exactly 9 armor and did nothing else, and gold value is still gold value. There's still some value there, but at the end of the day, that's where we are. All right, so other changes that happened in this game, or in this patch, there are some item changes. Every support now has Bandit, which is if you're ranged, you have 3 damage or 3 gold on auto attack, and if you're melee, it's 10 gold on auto attack, also 1 gold per dying nearby minion. So supports got also a free mastery, in addition to the fact that there's actually already a keystone that gives you gold on auto attacking a champion. So like supports, even though the range supports lost out because they didn't get as many stats, they did get a free mastery, right? So it's not, you can't just look at the numbers and say, but the gold value, because there's other things going on. Tank supports, even though they already got a lot of extra health, or a lot of extra armor, get an even greater heal. They get 2% missing health in addition to the flat heal, so that's really nice. I think it works for both, as well as the... yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, range supports have higher poke damage because there's no magic resist anywhere else, so Targon's gets extra healing. This, of course, does buff Marksman with Targon's as well, that it's an even better sustain item. I could totally see, actually, especially with the fact that you have Bandit for free, I think I will go Relic Shield literally every game on every Marksman. Every game I play bot lane, I'm going this. Because if I miss a CS, I get 1 gold back for it. If I harass you, I get 3 gold for it. I heal for more, and like this is a pretty meaningful amount. Like I don't see why I would never just do this every game. This seems amazing. Now, of course, Spell Thief's got a buff. It gives a little bit more gold on hit, right? So both these get buffed to be a little bit more in line with coin. Statistically, already, I think we are pretty close. One thing I want to point out is, I know we just got finished watching the World Championship, which was played on 7.18. That was 3 patches ago, which is, this is going to be 4 when this patch comes out. Ancient Coin already got an extra nerf, as well as Ardent Censer got an extra nerf in the previous couple of patches, in terms of like the mana restore. So I don't really feel like these needed to be buffed necessarily to stay in line with Ancient Coin. I thought it was already comparable. And so Ancient Coin, there's still going to be the perception of power, but I think you're going to have like, you're going to have this big sea change of just like Ancient Coin disappearing in a lot of cases. And people are going to be like, oh yeah, the metagame changed and League of Legends is different now. And it's like, no. The item was already on parity, and then both Targons and Spell Thieves got buffed. It was actually direct changes to the items and its counterparts. That's my opinion. Whatever. Anyway, nice little buff to Spell Thieves. Obviously, it's quite powerful. Right, 3 extra damage on hit doesn't mean a lot. But the fact that, again, you know, as a Zyra, no one has any MR against you anymore. You're doing your normal damage output to them. And certainly, yeah, like, a lot of Zyras before were running, like, Magic Pen marks and glyphs and maybe even quints and whatnot. And, you know, there's some numbers to look at a certain point. I feel like still, like, I don't know, you still come out in a pretty good spot. You guys supports, again, they got a free mastery. Nice little buff to Poacher's Dirk. It's been buffed for like the 4th time now. Eventually, at one point, it'll actually be good. It probably will at this point. I feel like this is going to start to be a pretty good item. So yeah, probably worth getting if you're a Kha'Zix or a Zed or whatever. You no longer gain bonus XP on a champion killer assist if you're below level. Realistically, all this really meant is supports got to level up a lot for free. But yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Because it's the average level of your team, it didn't really, like... So I actually saw someone tweet about this. There's a challenge support who tweeted about, ooh, this should make games, like, less comebacky. But that's not really how it works because, like, you got bonus XP if you're behind your team's average level, right? It's not, are you behind the average level of the game? And keep in mind, the team that's winning tends to be the one that gets more kills. Now, certainly, yes, if you do get kills from behind, you can start to catch back up, and it's good that there are some catch-up mechanics for that thing. But really, all this really meant is the Sorakas and Jannas of the world just leveled faster. So you will see some reduced agency to under-leveled players in games on the winning team. Like, it means that the Riven, who's 6-0, stays as ahead as she was before, but the 0-5 Vayne, who is Vayne spotting, doesn't catch up as quickly, which is actually probably a good thing, because then it means that, again, the winning team doesn't just like freely level up their underperforming members, which is actually probably more of a, this probably helps comebacks as the end result of the actual game, because it means that the ones who are feeding aren't catching up as well. Jungle catch-up XP is no longer based on number of monsters in the camp. This means that Raptors are no longer the highly prized, super important camp to take if you're behind. Really, in almost all cases, it now means that comeback XP is down, except for Red, Blue, and Gromp, but otherwise every other camp has 2 or more pieces in it. So catch-up XP is definitively down. It can't not be, unless, I mean, it just can't. It just can't not be. Because you killed more than just Red, Blue, and Gromp. It does matter for Scuttle a bit, or it can matter for Scuttle, I guess, if that happens. So there's, okay, Red, Blue, Gromp, Scuttle, and Scuttle. And I guess Dragon and I guess Baron and Rift Herald, like, those also count, but, like, really? Okay, technically those all count as buffs to catch up XP. But let's be real, Wolves, Krugs, and Raptors were really common to take, especially for magic damage junglers, because Krugs are super free for magic damage junglers. Raptors are obviously super, super popular, so catch-up XP definitely down quite a lot. What's nice is now you can actually start Wolf more easily and not feel bad about it. The first clear reduction is down a little bit. The Gromp first clear reduction down a little bit as well. So I don't actually know the total change in all of these numbers to look at all of these things going in. Basically, this is equivalent, by the way, right? Going from 200 to 180, if it was your first camp, right? 30 plus that versus 180 plus 50, right? It was the same numbers. But I do want to point out that if you're not behind levels of Red and Blue, these camps are worth less XP to you. So at a certain point, even power leveling, I mean, to a very small margin, it's 40 experience per 5 minutes. It's a very small margin, but technically this can be a difference. I think the actual end result is the fact that, like, because Wolves and Raptors are worth a bit more, these can just be worth less, and your first camp is fine. Okay. The other big change to the jungling, though, this is actually a really big deal, I don't want it to be missed, is every camp is now worth 4 monsters. Now, I don't know how this is actually specifically implemented, if, like, the big Raptors worth 3 and, like, the small Raptors are worth, like, 0.2. Like, I don't know exactly what that is. Like, if you just kill the big Krug, do you get 4 CS and the entire rest of the camp is worth the same? I don't actually know. I wasn't watching PBE very closely because I was in China casting Worlds. I've seen a lot of people complain that the 4 CS per camp makes the game less skillful because you can no longer track your opponent by pressing tab. And it's a debate you can have, but I want to point out that, like, there are different levels of skill. For example, I could look at you and see that you have 7 CS at level 2 and say, maybe you did Raptors and a red buff, or Raptors and a Scuttle Crab or something, right? Like, there's ways to, like, infer what they're doing, and that's true. There are ways to infer what they're doing. You know what else takes skill? Warding their jungle and actually tracking their camps and actually tracking the respawn timers and whatnot, right? Getting a deep ward, seeing they didn't start blue or wolves and saying, they started raptors or red or krugs. And then based on how long they've had their red buff for by looking at the timer and looking at how many camps they've killed, right? They're at 12, they've killed 3 camps. Okay, you're level 3, you've killed 3 camps, your red buff's been on you for this long. You can then still infer what camps they've done, right? By where they come out on the map, by where they started, and by how many camps they've done. You no longer know which camps they did, necessarily. But if they never took their blue buff, and they took 3 camps and showed up topside, you still know what 3 camps they did, right? Like there's only so many ways to really spin that as a real loss in skill. And even then, you could argue that proper deep warding and everything else is a more important skill and a more impressive skill to learn and improve upon and respect. So I don't buy the argument that like League is now for noobs because, there it is. Little Razorbeaks are worth 0.4 monsters. I literally highlighted it and then spent 20 seconds saying, I wonder how the Razorbeaks are done. Now I know. Good brain, Phreak. All right. Anyway, that's that thought. As with before, we talk about the fact that we lost runes and masteries in the game, so basic attacks do 5 bonus damage to lane minions in all places. There is basically a specific mastery that did this. Every champion now gets that mastery. And I wonder at a certain point, like, League of Legends has a lot of hidden mechanics like this. Like, for example, did you know that turrets do a fixed % max health damage against minions? Did you know that minions do a percentage of their listed damage on the tin against minions, champions, and turrets, and it changes based on which target they're actually hitting? Like, they do different percentage of their damage against minions than they do against turrets. FYI, that's a thing. There's a lot of little hidden mechanics that don't really matter. Like, you don't need to know the numbers to, like, play League of Legends and know how to play, but it always hurts me a little bit to have, like, entirely hidden mechanics in the game that if you never read this patch note, like, you'd probably never notice, because when you fight a champion, it has armor, so you don't realize that it, like, you know, oh yeah, of course the damage I do to the champion is less than the damage I do to the minion. No duh, it's a champion, it has armor. Not ever realizing that, like, you do 5 more than, like, your base stats say. Like, a lot of people just never notice this. Whatever, it's a really minor point. Great, this will help last hitting. It meant that if you... what's actually great is 80 carries who used to go into the Resolve tree, which was the proper mastery page, as a secondary back in the 2017 season, are just getting 5 more damage to minions because they're getting their marks replaced and they're getting the 5 bonus damage to hit. And so, feels good, man. Everyone just gets to last hit easier, and last hitting just becomes easier. How wonderful. The game starts 10 seconds faster, which means the camps will spawn faster, chimes will spawn faster, etc. All these things. Cool. I assume next season it'll start at 1 minute, which just feels like the really clean number, but it's gone down 10 seconds twice now, right? Because it used to be 1:30, then it became 1:20, obviously. Now it's at 1:10. I can imagine the 2019 preseason is like, screw it, it's a minute. Maybe even mid-season for 2018, it'll go down to a minute. And that's probably like the proper start time to feel good, right? Because hashtag clean numbers, and that's probably correct at a certain point. It's nice when things actually feel good. I'm going to guess, by the way, that Baron and Dragon and whatnot are still going to spawn at the same times. Like, I don't think Baron's going to be at 1950, for example. So technically, there's 10 more seconds of gameplay to be had before Baron spawns. Stronger champions on average. There's not going to be any real, like, meaningful changes to, like, how this affects the game on a macro level. Like, theoretically, minion waves are in a different place on a 20-minute Baron take, and thus, like, the rotation of Baron is faster or slower, but, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter for that regard. Like, it does, but it doesn't, you know? Because people are new to new runes, champ select is a little bit slower, 15 seconds longer, makes a little sense. Okay. Those are all the gameplay changes. I haven't talked about Runes Reforged, we'll do that another time. I'm going to go through the rest of what's going on in the preseason update because there's a lot of other things that happened, And so now we're into the part of the metagame systems part of the patch rundown. Oh baby, first 30 minutes where the actual game changes, last 30 minutes or whatever is going to be the metagame changes. So you can now level up past 30. Influence points are deleted from the game. Well, not deleted, they are converted into blue essence. Any blue essence you currently have is multiplied. Any influence points you have is turned into blue essence. You still can unlock champions like before with blue essence. Runes Reforged don't cost anything, so literally all blue essence does now is just the champions. And because IP is being deleted, you no longer gain IP when you win or lose a game. You gain experience when you lose a game, and you can level up past 30. And every level gives you a loot chest plus a key that opens right away. And it gives you champion shards, which very similar to blue essence, because that's what blue essence / IP gave you, the ability to unlock champions. It also gave you the ability to unlock runes, but runes are free, so that's just gone. Certain milestones will give you extra goodies. You'll get rewards to show off your status, so there are going to be summoner icons or emotes or things like that, maybe a ward skin. Yeah, so, and then you have things you can use your blue essence on, etc. Cool. As we talked about before, IP turns into blue essence. Champions still cost the same amount they did before. Leveling up through 30 actually gives you, is going to be faster. It's going to give you a lot more stuff. I don't know the exact mechanics there. I'm sure people will figure that out pretty soon, but it'll probably unlock you a lot of like easy to play champions. So if you get your friend into playing League of Legends, well, they have all their runes for free. They can get into those right away. They have actually automated pages as well, which is nice. And they're going to unlock champions like every game, which is pretty nice. And so apparently Katarina, Darius, and Jinx are potentially ones that are being given. I don't know exactly. IP boosts turn into XP boosts because, again, they're at this point now the same mechanic. Ascension's going in as the rotating game mode. That's pretty cool. Ascension's pretty fun. I want to point out that Pacifist Ascension has been destroyed because you can now recall to shop but not heal. For those who had seen Pacifist Ascension exist, that's gone. Because a lot of Runes Reforged don't work on Ascension. There's a lot of automatic replacements. Bug fixes to skins I'm not going to read. Emotes can now drop in Hextech crafting, which is super sweet. I'm going to look forward to opening up some emotes because I haven't really played any League since I got home or since the patch came out, and I haven't got to play with emotes yet. Definitely looking forward to using emotes. Skins coming out. Victorious Graves Chroma. We in there. Looks pretty cool. All right. Double Blitzcrank skin. Sweet looking Rengar. Cool stuff. Chromas for everything else. I assume these are based on your tier. Platinum, Diamond, Challenger, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe that's not even what it's for. Maybe you get Victorious Graves, and then you can then buy the chromas. Actually, that's probably more likely to be true, is that you're getting the Victorious Graves skin, and then... Actually, you know what? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna speculate on that. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick hit on Runes Reforged. I think I'm gonna do a deep dive onto Runes Reforged, a different video. But I want to talk now, going back to the top, about how Runes Reforged is going to affect the game. So once again, let's talk about the fact that you're getting a lot of stats. 130 health for going for a Resolve focus. You're getting 18 AP or 11 attack damage by going for a Domination focus. And I want to point out that these are more stats than your Quints gave you. And in fact, again, if you were worried about not getting enough stats back as a mage, you know, oh, the Nautilus tank guy, he got attack speed marks and he got his armor seals. I only got my health per level seals. I got nerfs. Like, well, you are getting more than your Quints back. Now, to be fair, so is Zed and whatnot. But I guess just to loop back into the earlier conversation about what stats people got is every single champion got armor or health. And armor and health are both good against Talon and Zed and Yasuo and Rengar. But only the health is good against mages. And so for the victors out there, the vast majority of your opposition, I mean, okay, you have the people that you play against in lane who are getting 12 health per level, which are just other mages, so you're all in the same boat anyway. Or you have the physical damage dealing mid laners, which got 5 health per level and 5 armor, which is basically nothing. And then everyone else got armor, right? And so mage versus mage, I guess, got close, or maybe they're actually tankier, but literally everyone else like got almost nothing against you. So even though mages didn't get magic pen marks, the fact that, or no like direct compensation, the fact that no one got MR glyphs, and most people didn't even gain any stats at all to protect against you, whereas most champions got 9 armor to protect against physical damage dealers, the end result is I don't think mages are worse for the wear, so I don't think they need to have like insane numbers out of this. So we can look back at what you get out of this, right? 130 health is a good like 350 gold or so worth of health. I should have and could have and should have done the actual math on how much gold value these really do give you, but I didn't because I'm a bad person. But a ruby crystal is 150 health for 400 gold. An amplifying tome is 435 gold for 20 ability power. So you subtract 43, you get about 400 gold worth of AP. You get a bit under 400 gold worth of health. You get about 350, as I said before. If you go into domination, it's this high. If you go into sorcery, it's a little bit, it's actually even more. This is weird. This is a typo of some kind. I don't know if sorcery plus precision is specifically more, or if it's plus any path is the plus 25. But either way, some of these are clearly very high, up to 25 ability power, 15 attack damage. It's quite a lot. Basically, what it comes down to is your path bonus is a really big deal. Getting health, getting attack damage or ability power, getting attack speed. These are all worth a little bit more than the quintessences gave you, right? So again, every champion got marks to a certain extent. Every champion, literally every champion got seals. No one got glyphs, and then everyone got their quints back. And to a certain point, if you're using a really weird rune page, you kind of got your glyphs back as well. If you were like Forgiven and you ran attack speed glyphs all the time, you almost exactly got these back in your favor. If you were running flat ability power glyphs as well as quints, you would actually get 25 ability power out of that. So, or 26, I think, but close enough, right? So in some cases, you kind of got it all replaced. And then specifically, if you're inspiration secondary, or sorry, if you're an inspiration primary, because none of the inspiration keystones or runes are really very good at base stats, with a few exceptions like this, basically you get a few more extra stats. And this is a very easy lever to change, of course. I think I would expect to see a lot of these path bonuses change a bit. And like, hey, maybe precision plus sorcery gives you less stats than precision plus domination because no one's willing to go, into the sorcery secondary because they're not quite good enough for marksman. But it'd be nice to see that. So if we give you 3% more attack speed, maybe you'll do it. And it's like a very easy lever, right? Is like you can make precision primary, sorcery secondary different from sorcery primary, precision secondary, and you have like fun levers. So the cool thing about that is I think it gives a lot of really good balance levers, so that you can have a lot of options. Like, what if just precision resolve just gives you a ton of stats, and that way you can be happy about stuff. Okay. Anyway, what it comes down to is, much like the 2017 mastery system, your primary choice I think should come down partially to your path bonus, but I think the major thing you're supposed to care about really is the keystone. I think the keystone is carrying most of the power, and so that should be really why you choose the place you're going. And let's talk about the kinds of champions who will pick each of these paths. Okay, so let's go into Resolve, right? A Resolve keystone you might care about, Grasp of the Undying. We've all seen this one before. It's almost exactly the same. Difference is your max health increases by 5 every time you use it, and ranged champions don't get quite as much. The damage and healing are both halved. You heal, you're back to doing 4% of your max health, healing for half of it. Health increase pretty cool. It's a slight increase in the overall power of the keystone. Aftershock is more or less a Courage of the Colossus replacement. It triggers off the same things as Courage of the Colossus, but instead of it giving you a shield, it gives you essentially damage reduction by increasing your armor and magic resist by 20 plus 30% for a few seconds. And then it explodes, dealing actually pretty meaningful damage, right? It explodes for the same damage as Grasp of the Undying. Now, I want to point out that Grasp of the Undying can trigger every 4 seconds, and Aftershock triggers every 20. Certainly having a base damage is valuable. If you're, let's say, a 3,000 max health champion, 0.5% of your max HP is, if you're at 3,000, it's like 15 damage, I think. Because 0.1% of 1,000 is 1. And if you're at 3,000, that's 3. And if you have 0.5, then it's 15, right? So a 3,000 health champion, Aftershocks definitely doing more by quite a bit. So the extra base damage on the shockwave is certainly meaningful. I used this on Singed, and it felt decent. It was hard to tell what was going on right away because just there's so many particles going on, and I don't think it had like full art when I had played it. But right, it auto confirms off of Fling. Its cooldown actually pretty similar to Fling itself as well. You get 2 flings off every Aftershock. It scales off your max health, feels pretty good. Bonus stats obviously pretty good as well. What's nice is Guardian has hooks for tank supports and non-tank supports because it's either standing next to them or targeting them with spells. And while you guard them, you give them a bonus shield when things pop. You gain some move speed as well. That feels great. There's a lot of places you can do this, but it feels like it's pretty likely that a Sejuani, right, hits the ultimate, gets in a melee range, does a cool thing. That's going to feel pretty nice. A Singed could care about this, and even supports can go into this path. So a lot of pretty good hooks. None of these feel pretty good for non-tanks, which I don't think is really a surprise. That's fine. I don't think we're expecting to see Victor get into this area at all. Domination Keystone's pretty cool as well. You get, again, attack damage or ability power. Should tell you kind of what kind of champions you're looking at. Electrocute is read on Thunderlords, the difference being that you have to hit them with different abilities and attacks. Every individual auto attack counts as 1, then 2, then 3. You could just 3 auto summon to trigger Thunderlords, or Electrocute as it's now called. But for example, Bullet Time for Misfortune will only ever count as 1. It won't give you a second or a third trigger. The damage is certainly pretty reasonable. The cooldown seems to be missing. I think it's 20-ish seconds or so. I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's not just like forever you electrocute people. I'm pretty sure that would be really crazy if it had no cooldown, but last I saw it had a cooldown, so I think this is a typo to not have one. Predator is Warwick W on an active. Basically, once you buy boots, you can pop it. You gain a bunch of out-of-combat move speed. You do a bunch of damage when you get a big burst of damage when you hit someone. It's pretty sweet. Cooldown goes down with time, and once you get it 3 minutes into the game, you've got it. So that's pretty sweet. Well, as soon as you buy boots, you have it. Which I feel like we're going to see like a Lee Sin, like, start Hunter's Machete, clear a few camps, recall, buy boots 1, pop this, gank bot lane, that kind of stuff can go on. Could be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to that kind of stuff going on. Dark Harvest feels pretty sweet. Basically, when champions, large minions, and large monsters die, you drop a soul. When you get a soul, it's basically a Sheen proc. And if you auto-attack a turret or champion, or an inhibitor, I guess, but any champion or structure, it consumes it and deals damage. Once you get into late game, it carries for 5 minutes instead of 20 seconds. I actually had noticed that I used this playing Gangplank, and it was not always easy to get Q off onto a meaningful target. Like, I wasn't always able to push, or I couldn't always walk up to parlay my lane opponent. It's certainly pretty good, but it was also sometimes hard to make this work in a team fight because you're using your barrels more than using your auto attacks, and so it wasn't always super free. But I think this can be very, very good for ranged champions because the damage keeps stacking up over the course of time, obviously. It's a bit easier to attack someone when you're ranged, especially if you're like maybe a rapid fire cannon user and you get that bonus range once in a while. But I could actually see this being pretty useful on, like, let's say a Tristana or something in bot lane and going for a domination primary, getting Dark Harvest and who else better than Marksman are really good at auto attacking. And because you drop souls on champion kills, you get it back up again later on. So it could be really cool. Also, of course, again, worth pointing out, Dark Harvest lasts 20 seconds or 300 later on. It drops on large monsters and is not consumed on monsters, which means if you're like playing Rengar, you can kill the Raptor, get the buff, press your ultimate, gank mid, and then apply this damage. So there's some pretty interesting hooks there. Precision is obviously a very marksman-heavy place to come in. I think these are almost all really bad for assassins, but we'll go over them. So press the attack is basically silver bolts. I don't know if there's a cooldown on this either, but 3 consecutive base attacks deals some decent damage. The damage goes up with time, and then it increases all damage by 12% from anyone. So what's nice is like you can attack someone 3 times as Triss, and then everyone has a 12% damage amp, which is really, really nice. Obviously, so do you, which is good. 12% more total damage is reasonably comparable to like old Fervor stacks. It went up to like, I want to say 50 or so damage on Fervor, which, hey, would be a 12% damage increase if you had 500 attack damage. So it was more than that for auto attacks, certainly, but this is for your whole team. It also affects ability damage. This is still pretty strong. And again, I don't know if there's a cooldown or if you can just keep doing it forever. If you do it forever, then you eventually get up to 40 on hit damage, which is not even that insane. Like, that's what a Wit's End gives you. It's not even that crazy. So maybe it just doesn't have a cooldown, which, yeah, sounds pretty fun. The more I think about it, the more it probably doesn't have a cooldown, but I'm really not sure. Either way, this actually feels pretty good, pretty reliable. Feels great on Vayne because you're already trying to trigger Silver Bolts. But Vayne also has this that she might want, which is bonus attack speed, pretty frequently in team fights. This is actually quite a lot of stats. You can even break the attack speed limit. So if you're like playing Jinx and you get excited a couple of times, or you're playing Tristana and still buying Double Zeal for some unknown reason, you know, you're not getting penalized for getting this, which is kind of nice. But really, even though it says you can break the attack speed limit, like, and yeah, you're probably going to go for this if you are an on-hit user, because, hey, attack speed is a great synergy for on-hits. This is actually better if you don't normally buy a lot of attack speed, because the value of getting like 40% bonus attack speed is higher when you don't have 500% attack speed from other sources. So it's actually really good on slower attackers as well. Really do want to point that out overall. Cooldown only 10 seconds, pretty short. Feels good, man. Fleet of Footwork, pretty cool. It's basically the Warlord's Bloodlust replacement. Still works on Energize, but it's a flat heal opposed to percent of your damage dealt, which, I mean, technically means it's entirely champion agnostic because you're just building energy, so whatever, right? You don't have to build Rapid Fire Cannon for this to be good. And because it's not lifesteal, it's literally flat health, and it scales off AP as well. This is usable for, I don't know, a Mage of the Bad Lane. If you're playing Victor, okay, yeah, you don't really want attack speed from your Precision Path bonus, but I mean, if you're playing Azir, you still want attack speed. If you're playing Kayle, you're happy with this as well. Now, you might want to press the attack if you're Kayle, or Lethal Tempo if you're Kayle, but just saying that, like, Fleet of Footwork works on everyone as long as you can stomach the attack speed bonus and precision. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, cool. And you heal less on minions because infinite sustain, not the funnest thing ever. Sorcery, actually it's a really, really versatile path overall. So here's the next easy hook for supportive supports. Your attacks and abilities send area to a target, damaging enemies or shielding allies. I believe it can work on minions as well, so it's very easy to waste. I could be wrong. Again, I haven't done a lot of time playtesting these runes because I've been out for so long. But I've heard people say it's really, really good on someone like Soraka. This is a specific mechanic I want to call out, which is when Aerie times out, or the shield times out, and the fairy starts slowly walking back to you, you want to walk into it to get it off cooldown faster. It's basically a cooldown mechanic that scales with you running into it and picking it up again. But a decent shield, decent bit of damage. Pretty good stuff here. Arcane Comet is a very, very good catch-all damage dealing ability. I mean, it's any ability damage. It does some decent, and it's going to be physical or magical based on what type of champion you are, which, by the way, I love so much. I want to look up at, yeah, I know that Hoarder is adaptive, I'm almost certain. Yeah, deals adaptive damage. And Electrocute is also adaptive damage, which means if you're playing Zed or Talon, these do physical damage. And if you're playing Victor or Azir, they do magic damage. That is such a big deal that it makes a lot more of these sort of ambivalent, which is really, really nice. Certainly, it you know, never changed people anyway. Like, Zed was still running Thunderlords regardless, as was Rengar. But I really like the fact that it actually matches your damage type, so that armor continues to do what it's supposed to, and precision, or lethality is what it's supposed to. It's a feel-good thing for me, even though it doesn't actually mean that much overall. Anyway, Arcane Comet's damage is pretty low, but non-trivial. The cooldown is pretty low as well. I want to point out that even though Arcane Comet says it hurls a comet at their location, the total travel time is flat always, meaning if you land a Lee Sin Q in melee range versus Gangplank ulting across the map, there is no difference. It takes the same amount of time. It also means that this has anti-synergies. Fling forcibly misses Arcane Comet. You literally cannot trigger Arcane Comet in a good way with Fling. Poison Trail will do it, and that's fine. I think you can actually get away with playing Poison Trail on Singed, but you can't lead with Fling or it does nothing, and you've got to wait for the 8-second cooldown for it to come back. Now, the reason I say that it can be good on Singed is Arcane Comet is actually a really good DPS ability. The damage is kind of low, but so is the cooldown. And every time you hit someone with an ability, it ticks the cooldown down. And so if you're hitting like a Misfortune E on people, tick, 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 or a Malzahar E or Malzahar R, you can probably throw multiple Arcane Comets on the same target in a small window. And that's when this starts to matter a whole lot. The numbers don't look super, super high. And I used Arcane Comet Caston before, and it felt bad because I was against a bunch of shielders. There was like, it's like a Victor and a Lee Sin or something, and consistently they would just like, Lee Sin would just like happen to shield damage all the time with Safeguard, and I would feel really bad that my Arcane Comet did nothing so frequently. But I think realistically, there's actually a lot of gain here. When I played it, it was before this cooldown reduction mechanic was in, and I think it's actually a really, 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 really big factor. And Arcane Comet ends up being basically a Deathfire Touch replacement in a way, because all it takes is one ability hit. Yes, they can dodge, but they won't always. And I mean, the cooldown's not even that bad. So like, I can see this being a really good brand support keystone. Land your W, you might land the Comet as well. You're good to go. And your Blaze ticks the cooldown back. So really not too bad. Phase Rush is the replacement for Storm Raider Surge. But instead of getting them low, it's attacks and abilities. If you're melee, you get slow resist. Cool, not much to talk about with this one. I actually like the reliable trigger because it makes it very easy to know if you're going to get it on like Nasus. It's basically E auto Q or B in R range, then it's E in 1 auto. So you know when you're getting it. You can trigger it against tanks, which is nice. Right, Victor, I think both halves of his Q would work as different things. I'm not certain, but maybe. Either way, 3 autos / spells isn't that hard, so... and either way, I mean, this can work on literally every champion of the game except for like maybe Soraka, who's not going to get autos off, right? There's a few who don't want this, mostly supports, but everyone else is going to do a meaningful amount of attacking. Like, I mean, think about like Rammus, right? Like, it is trivially easy to trigger Phase Rush on Rammus. You Powerball in, you taunt them, you auto them twice, and now when you hit Ball Curl, you have 75% slow resist and a like 25% movement speed buff. You are now faster than base move speed in defensive Ball Curl as Rammus. That seems good. Just saying. Seems good. Also, Vi, etc. Lots of people can make use of the slow resist, but really this is... I think it's going to take a while for people to realize what they want to run Phase Rush on. It's like, okay, when do I need move speed after getting into combat? But I think there's a decent number of these where it's going to happen. It's like obviously really easy to trigger with someone like Darius, you know, right, Q, auto W, etc. But anyway, I think this is super useful in a lot of different cases, and we'll see who really wants it at the end. And then Inspiration is really interesting, right? You get the path bonus of whichever your secondary was, amplified by 15%. You also gain Potion and Elixir duration, which is kind of nice. Certainly can matter. And I think really almost every champion can make use of this in some way. So the first one is Unsealed Spellbook. You can change your summoner spells. You get one at 2 minutes. You get another every 6 minutes after that. You can exchange 1 shard for 1 summoner spell. So you can replace... Oh, sorry, you get one at 2 minutes. You get another every 6 minutes, right? So at 2 minutes, you replace a summoner. At 8, you can replace a summoner. At 14, you can replace a summoner. And you can stack up to 2 to replace like both, right, all at once. Again, you stack up to 2. Buying Smite won't actually give you access to Smite. You can't do the same summoner spell. And overall, your summoner spells are down by 25% cooldown. I've heard concerns, mostly from the designers, that like they're worried people buy this keystone just to get the summoner spell cooldown. I think that's probably not that likely. I think there's other good keystones out there. But I'm excited to see what people come up with this. If everyone runs Smite at the start of the game because they all want to get a green Smite for the 600 gold Sightstone? Probably not, but who knows, right? How often does a top lane Nautilus want to go Red Smite Cinderhulk and then swap their Smite for TP? And yeah, that was their Keystone choice, but I mean, their Keystone got them Cinderhulk and a Sightstone. That's fine. What about Jace, Warrior Enchant, Red Smite? That sounds pretty great. Like, there might be, like, I'm going to make a guess that one of the primary uses of Unsealed Spellbook is... Oh, I guess you have to keep Smite for Red Smite to exist. That's fair. So you probably actually go Green Smite in that case. I think there's a decent chance that like one of the primary uses of Unsealed Spellbook is getting a Smite Stone, getting a really efficient enchant, and like finding a way to partially jungle, and then getting the thing you'd normally get later on. That's my theory. We'll see if it actually happens. I'm not sure it's true or not. But either way, you have really short cooldowns. That's pretty cool. I could actually see a jungler starting this, getting Green Smite, and then just running like Exhaust Flash for the mid game until Baron spawns. Either because you have like a Kalista on your team or a Cho'Gath on your team, or you literally are Cho'Gath, and you just like, yeah, I don't need Smite anymore, screw it. Like, we have burst damage, we have a way of doing this. I could see that, I really could. I could see this happening. I think Smite is one of the very easy reasons why you'll bring Unsealed Spellbook. That's my run on that. Next up, Glacial Augment is basically froze them out with a cooldown. Basic attacking slows them. Cooldown is actually pretty short, but it's not 100%, so that's kind of nice. Melee slow for much more than range, which is really nice. And if you slow them with an active item, it's always 50% slow, which is, by the way, the max slow you could have gotten. It's the melee slow at level 18-ish. And so slowing a champion with an active item shoots a freeze ray through them, freezing the ground. And it's a per unit thing. So like, if I Randuin's 3 different people, I freeze ray, I assume, at all 3 of them. If I buy Hextech GLP, it'll go for all of them. If I get Spooky Ghosts, it'll work for all of them. And again, it has to be an item that slows. I'm pretty sure, like, if you have a Proto Belt and a Rylaze, Proto Belt will probably trigger this as well, although that seems excessive. But theoretically, it's possible, I think. Either way, it's pretty cool. I don't know who the primary culprits are. It just feels like a generally useful item, or a keystone. Again, you can get the slow just by auto-attacking, and that's not bad in and of itself. We'll see what happens. And this is a really fun one. Basically, you have a Sheen that grants gold when it hits a champion. So obvious winners here are someone like Gangplank. Sona's going to do this quite a bit because Q auto is pretty frequent for her. Leona, when she does go in, obviously gets a spell before she auto-attacks. Lulu does a lot of E-auto. Janet does a lot of E-auto. Catherine doesn't auto much, but maybe Kale, maybe Teemo, every Q auto does it. There's a decent number of people out here who would do a fair bit of spells into auto attack trades. Tristana's okay with this as well. Use an ability and an attack on a champion grants bonus gold. And you gain consumables, and the consumables are things like small health potions. You get like short duration red elixirs and things like this. I don't know the exact table of loot, but there's a lot of it. There's a lot of like little fun, minorly useful consumables, and I think it really is a very strong keystone because even though you're not getting like, I don't know, electrocute damage or whatever, you're still getting like a buff on you that lasts 40 seconds that does the same work anyway, right? Like, there's a really decent chance that Kleptomancy is just actually the best keystone based on what it actually gives you. I think it's very easy to overlook this one, but I think it's actually quite good. So I ended up spending about 25 minutes going over the very general overview of Runes Reforged. I'll probably do a more involved one when the patch actually comes out and I can start using the client as opposed to reading through all this stuff because the numbers are at my fingertips a bit better and I can just like actually make real pages. But for now, that's going to do it for the patch 7.22 rundown. Thank you all very much for tuning in. If you want to leave me feedback or follow me on social media, it's all the way over there. I don't use the Facebook anymore, but YouTube and Twitter is obviously where you can find me a lot. I stream sometimes as well. I'll probably stream a lot through the preseason. It's on Twitch TV/Phreak stream. Anyway, you guys are wonderful. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.